So after rewatching the entirety of the Die Hard franchise, actually watching one of these movies for the very first time, it's now the perfect time to rank all 5 Die Hard movies. One quick thing before I do get started, make sure you let me know your ranking in the comment section down below. Which movies you love, which movies you hate, which movies you watch every single Christmas, and which movies you wished were never made at all. Let me know all that in the comment section down below. But with all that said, let's go into my number 5. And coming in number 5 is the obvious pick. Everyone's going to say this is the movie that this was actually my first viewing that I had put off for so many years because all I've heard is bad things about this movie, and that is A Good Day to Die Hard, or Die Hard 5. I thought this movie was really bad. Not only did it not feel like a Die Hard movie, also Bruce Willis just did not feel like John McClane whatsoever. This is one of the first movies, well, one of the earliest movies I feel where Bruce Willis just doesn't care, didn't put any effort into this movie whatsoever. Not only is Bruce Willis doesn't feel like John McClane, but John McClane himself, he doesn't really feel like a good guy. In the other movies, he's the good guy, he's the honest cop, but in this movie, he just doesn't feel like it. There's a pretty cool scene in this movie where there's a big cool actual car chase scene, which is actually the most memorable scene in the whole movie. But in that scene, Bruce Willis, or John McClane, keep doing that, John McClane literally drives a truck off a bridge, driving the car on top of other cars that have just random people in it. So he really killed a few people randomly in that scene. That's the only memorable action scene. The movie's only about an hour and a half. I cannot even remember the villain's name. I can't remember the villain's plot. This movie has nothing interesting to say. It really did not need to exist. It doesn't need to be a Die Hard movie. It's just such a massive disappointment for this franchise. And coming in number 4, I've got Die Hard 2, or Die Harder. This movie as a whole, I just think is massively forgettable in the fact that it kind of is pretty much a kind of a carbon copy of the first movie. They bring back the reporter for some very odd reason. Holly is in another scenario where John McClane has to bring her down from somewhere where she really doesn't really need to be in that scenario. The villain in this movie, like the first one, or like number 5, first on my list, is very forgettable. I can't really remember anything about him. All I remember is the fact that they're trying to kind of get this guy off a plane so they can take him away, so they're holding all these planes hostages. So I can't really remember him personally. I can't even remember who the main bad guy was in this movie. Best of my knowledge, John McClane and the bad guy never meet in this movie. It's just so much wrong with this movie. The fact that I don't really feel like it's a Die Hard movie. It does not feel like it. I think if I ever want to watch a Die Hard movie, I'm going to watch the first one. I'm not going to go back and watch this one. A cool scene though, John McClane, because the landing strips are not well lit up. Well, they're not lit up at all. In the plane sequences at the end, John McClane blows up a plane using the fire trail he uses to land the plane. That was a pretty cool way to wrap up this movie. It was pretty kind of action packed in that way. But the movie as a whole is not really action packed. Coming in number 3, I've got Die Hard 4, or Die Hard 4.0 according to the Blu-ray. Also, Live Free or Die Hard. This was actually my first time watching this movie in, I'd say, about 5 years, maybe even more. After the first time I watched it, for some reason I didn't like it, so I never had that ambition to go back and watch it. But after rewatching it this time, I was pleasantly surprised. This movie is action-packed, and it's action-packed in the best way possible. The action in this movie is absolutely ridiculous, and I loved it so much. John McClane literally takes down a jet by himself, which was awesome. Bruce Willis as John McClane feels more like he does in Die Hard 2. This is like, he feels like John McClane 20 years later, or wherever it was at this stage. He just really feels like John McClane. He's so likable in the movie. You also got Justin Long as a supporting character, supporting role. Really liked him in this movie. Didn't even know he was in it until he showed up, and I just think he works really well off John McClane. I think their relationship is just really solid. The bad guys, again, they're not as memorable. I can't remember the guy's name, but he was a team. No, I can't remember his name. He was also in The Mandalorian season 2. But the premise of the bad guys are pretty interesting. The fact that they were hacking into the American government to take them down, not to do anything bad, just to prove how easy it is for them to do. I just thought that was pretty interesting in a way. But besides all that, the action's good, the story is memorable. I'm not going to wait as long to watch this movie again because I really enjoyed this movie. And my runner-up, coming in second place, is Die Hard 3 or Die Hard with a Vengeance. I absolutely love the chemistry and the relationship between Bruce Willis and Samuel Jackson. They work off each other really well. The back and forth they have works really well. You also got Jeremy Irons playing Alan Rickman's brother in this movie. You don't see Alan Rickman, of course, but Jeremy Irons playing Simon was just brilliant. I thought the whole premise of Simon Says telling them to run around New York City again. New York City, we finally get to see a New York City cop be in New York City. It's mad that we got 5 movies in this franchise, and this is the only one where we actually get to see Bruce Willis be in New York City, and the whole landscape, the whole setting in New York, it feels very real, it feels very dirty, it just works really well. Again, the Simon Says element, the action in this movie, it's one of the more memorable Die Hard movies. It's very close to being number 1, but number 1 will always be number 1. And coming in number 1 is, it's Die Hard. This movie is probably my favorite straight up action movie. I love John McClane. This is my favorite Christmas movie as well. This is the one I actually watch every Christmas Eve. I think it's the best to lead into Christmas. I think it's fantastic. Alan Rickman in this movie. Everyone always says, oh, he reminds me of Snape. Even when me and my girlfriend first met, she said Alan Rickman is Snape. I said, no, he's Hans Gruber. And she was like, who's that? So I had to introduce her to Die Hard. So even though everyone sees him as Snape, he's always been Hans Gruber to me. I love the back and forth between Bruce Willis and I can't remember the guy's name, the cop on the ground. I like the back and forth they have on the walkie-talkie. All of it, I just think this movie is so much fun. I love the action. I love the fact that just by him not having his shoes, it makes so much more tension to him. I like him picking off the guys throughout the movie where he has their names written down, he's crossing them off. All of it. I think this movie is so much fun. It's endlessly rewatchable. I actually don't even know how many times I've watched this movie, and I'll probably watch it every year, if not 4 or 5 times a year. I think I haven't watched it this year yet, but I did watch it Christmas, and I'm excited to rewatch it as soon as possible because this movie is definitely one of my all-time favorite movies. So that's my ranking of all 5 Die Hard movies. Make sure you let me know your ranking in the comment section down below. Also, make sure you click that subscribe button so you can come back next time I do a movie review or ranking. If you want to be here for all that, click that subscribe button. And as always, thanks for watching.